Hello, everyone. I hope you're all safe and healthy at home. I do understand that times are pretty tough right now and challenging. This change that we are going through, it's got us to introspect a lot about our life, where we are at in our sporting careers. It's also got up a lot of anxieties, in this time frame. Today, I would like to talk about exercise and a few techniques that would help in mental training, especially during this lockdown period. Now, everyone knows that, when we say exercise, we mean any physical activity that makes a specific or set of muscles in your body work. uh, People would think right now, how does exercise make your mental framework stronger? As an athlete, you could be putting in all the hard work, you're training every single day, but without your mind understanding those actions, uh, the result that you desire would take much longer to achieve, probably would not even be as consistent as you want, and especially under pressure. I'll give you a small example about a very famous golfer, Rory McIlroy. He's a very talented golfer. Everybody knows him. We all love him. During Augusta Masters of 2011, everyone expected him to win. He had three solid, first three rounds were really good. On the final day, when he was leading by four shots, he ended up having a very unfortunate, very bad round of 80. Now, for professional golfers, shooting an under par round is a practice. It's more like a common thing for them. So this round of 80 was like a massive mental blow for him. He ended up being tied in the 15th position. Now, one would think that after such a performance, it would be very difficult for him to come back, which is true. But to everyone's surprise, only 8 weeks later, he won the US Open. So, this just goes to show how the technical aspect of your game has to be in sync with the mental training to achieve the results that you want. Now, just imagine if he would have only worked on like his putting or chipping or just his golf swing, and not worked on the mental side of the game. Maybe that year the US Open would then belong to someone else. So, coming from this example, I would like to say that mental training and exercising your mind is a very important part of an athlete's career. Normally, we state that when we start a sport, it takes about 8 to 10 weeks when your body adapts to the movements of the muscle. And that's when your memory starts to store these movements. Now, it's a very important point here that I'm going to say. Um, People say that, yes, I've worked on mental training 3 times a week, or I work on the mental side of my game every Sunday. It doesn't work that way. When it comes to the matters of the mind, one has to train it every single day for it to be in sync with your technical actions, or let's say if you're making any golf changes. Now, there are tons of ways of keeping your mind active. And, the time that we're going on today, this lockdown period, it's not just sports psychologists, psychologists everywhere would highlight that having a routine is very important for us. It's important because it gets structure to our day to day life. There are these questions that my students have started throwing at me, saying that, how do we get this routine going, because we can't go on the golf course, we can't train. How do we get this golfing time that we used to have on the course, how do we get it inside the house? Now my first suggestion would be that, listen, if you wake up at 7 8 in the morning, you stick with that, you do that. uh, you know uh, Trying to keep your training time the same every single day would bring a lot of mental structure. Aside from this, mental activation drills can be done around the house in a very creative way, such as, these days we are on our Netflix, we're on the laptop most of the time, on our phones. So pick up some apps, take advantage of these apps. I'll tell you some apps like Brain Game, Spot the Difference, Find the Letters, or Match Shapes, Settle for Different Colors. These are all apps that one can take advantage of in times like this. It keeps your mind active. Other than this, physical drills are also there. you know let's say golfers need a lot of hand-eye coordination, they need timing, there is depth perception involved in the game. Now, one of the most common advice that's given to all golfers right now in this period is stand in front of a mirror and make as many golf swings as you can. Yes, that is one of the drills. It does help, and I'll take this forward in the later part of my talk on how it works. Then, of course, there are other things you can do, like if you've got a tennis racket, smash some tennis balls on the wall. If your parents and siblings are there, ask them, involve them with you, ask them to play a little bit of catch with you. Now, what I'm saying right now, these are sounding very basic and very simple at home, but what it actually does is it activates different muscles in your body. It activates your mind. It keeps it, the mind is in a sporting framework. Um, Now, as I spoke about depth perception, I'll say this, and this is not just particularly for golfers. There are other athletes who can also understand what I'm saying right now. When I talk about depth perception, and exercise as simple as keeping a bucket, keeping it on different lengths, different distances, from different angles. You take your dominant arm, uh, take tennis balls or golf balls, and try and put them in the bucket. You get an idea, you get a perception. Um, we as children, when we used to go to all these fairs, there was this game. I don't know if you've heard of this, but it used to be called Cap on a Pen. We can still use it in today's time. You can take a gardening pot and you can put your golf club in it, and you can, try and get your cap on it, on the club head. Or what you can do is, put a pen. It's a good exercise to get your mind to assess different heights, different depths. um, Now let's say if you don't have space in your house, what are the other exercises that you can, or techniques that you can incorporate in your daily life? uh, there is a very simple drill. It's you can use the simple pen and paper drills for concentration. There are ample amounts that you're going to find on the internet. Other than that, I'll give you an example. Take some playing cards, put those playing cards upside down, um, open them one by one, try and make pairs of them. What this exercise would do is it would channelize your mind. It would channelize your, not your mind, channelize your concentration. You're going to be more focused. Try and get more competitive with this. Get your siblings involved in it, or your parents involved. Now, aside from routine, because everybody is talking about this. But aside from routine, there's another factor which is playing a big part in during this lockdown period. uh, and this is one part which would affect your mental training, which is why I'm talking about it. It's called sleep. We are either sleeping too much these days or we're sleeping too less. Now, we're sleeping too less because we're anxious about questions like, when am I going to get to play golf next? Athletes are also thinking about, uh, will I make enough money to financially support my golf this year? Are there going to be enough golf tournaments this year? Firstly, all these questions are completely justified. They are completely, these thoughts are completely okay to have. Now, what people would normally suggest or would be, meditate, train your mind to calm this anxiety down. Yes, I do support meditation a lot, but when things are said in terms of try and picture nothing, be blank, have no thoughts in your mind, or think of only positive thoughts, you know uh, it's a human tendency. Our mind will never be blank. It's even while I'm saying to you, try and picture nothing, your mind is still entertaining a thought. So yes, meditation is a great technique, but it takes years of practicing it every single day, and years of doing it in the right way. And even when you're getting all these thoughts, it's fine. But instead of this, there are a few other things also that I recommend to my students. A, to start off, diet. A big part of our life today, uh, you know, we are either eating too much or we are eating too less. Again, because we are anxious about things. Now, this in turn affects our sleep. you know um, Diet is directly proportional to our sleep. So you wouldn't want to go to sleep empty stomach, nor would you. It would be so unsettling to sleep with a stomach which is full. So diet plays a big part. Now another technique is relaxation techniques. This is the best time to practice relaxation techniques. We will lie in our beds. There should be no phones, no laptops. Of course, when I'm saying this, there are relaxation techniques that are um, different person to person. So you should consult with your psychologist. Understand that you deep breathe, you relax each and every muscle in your body, how it's working for you, what is working for you. It I can't just talk about this in one session, but yes, this is a big part of your mental training during the lockdown period, to kind of have to kind of get this skill with you. Now, how is this going to help? How does relaxation technique help really? You're just relaxing your body and the anxiety goes off. How it works is, when after 3 months or 2 months you're back on the golf course, and let's say you're playing a tournament, there's a pressure part. What you do is you're going to be deep breathing. You're partially going to follow this relaxation method that you previously learned. Immediately your brain is going to send signals to your muscles. Your body is going to be like, yeah, this is muscle memory. I know this, I've done this before. The minute you go stand on that pressure part, your muscles are a lot less tense. It's going to be a lot more easier. The more you practice this, the better you will get on the course under pressure situations. Then of course there is exercise. uh, we all know it's a fact that when you exercise, your stress levels are down, your anxiety is less. We are so restless these days. So exercise releases these happy hormones. They are dopamine and endorphins. Now, what exercise also does, how it affects sleep, how it is benefit uh, acts like a benefit to us, would be, when you exercise, your body temperature rises by a few degrees. Later part of the day, it kind of normalizes the temperature inside your body. Uh, by the time you reach nightfall, what it does is it triggers drowsiness. It triggers this internal mechanism where, which kind of helps you sleep better. So yes, definitely exercise and sleep, again, they're connected. Another way that we can exercise at home right now, because we are not going to gyms, or yoga mats and weights are not the only way to work out. So there are ample amount of exercises. Some are also specific to your sport. um, I'll give you a small example. Like, you could use water bottles as cones. You could do your runnings between them, or you could have bags filled with sand. You could use them as your weights. There are tables and chairs available. You could use them for your back push ups. We have stairs if we live in houses, flats. There are ample amount of alternatives that are there for us to activate our mind through physical activity. Another very useful method, I find it very useful. It's called, sports psychologists would call it modeling. Now, what happens here is, there are some awesome videos, workout videos, again, specific to your sport, by some really good athletes. Either you're fans of them or you idolize them, but they're all there on the internet. Now, somebody like a really good friend of mine, Chirag Kumar, he puts up these amazing videos, workout videos on Insta, on Facebook. So I'm not saying copy these videos, but these are brilliant videos to draw inspiration from. These are good videos to also motivate you. Go ahead, make them your own, get creative. But yeah, coming back to sleep. So when we sleep less, there are these certain techniques that we can follow to sleep better. Other than this, we've got sleeping too much that makes our body lazy and complacent. This is where routine comes in. This is why I first spoke about routine. Yes, it does get boring. It gets monotonous, but you get creative with it. There is motivation involved. I'm not going to delve into motivation because I'm expecting quite a few questions in that. But I'll give you a small, really quick example of you know um, that that I had read in my life much earlier. Everybody knows Saif Ali Khan's father, right, Patodi. He uh, there was another cricketer called Gundappa Vishwanath. Now, what Gundappa Vishwanath did was, there were he made 100, score a century. Now it's brilliant, right? To score such a great amount, but there were only like four fours and about four sixes that he made in that within that score. All the time he was running between the wickets. Now Patodi saw this as a captain, and he came in and he said, "You know what you need to do? Really, you need to build your wrist so that you could literally smack the ball and fly it over the cricket ground." And he did that. He started picking up buckets of water. He built himself so much that he wouldn't tire his body while he was playing the game. But the process of this started not on the field, it started off the field. where he would do these exercises, build himself up. When he came back on the field, he was a lot more confident. He was a lot more stronger. His body wasn't getting tired for his mind to also be tired. So yeah, so now that I've spoken about sleep, we've done routine. We've seen how exercise plays such a key role in keeping our mind active and constantly challenging it. The third very important point that I would really like to talk about right now is communication. What we do is, if communication is not there, the hard work that we've done, it doesn't really it almost goes like next to negligible. um, and one would think that how is communication connected with exercise or mental training? I'll tell you one word for it. It's called feedback. You can stand in front of the mirror and you can make 1,000 golf swings. It's not going to do any good unless and until you've gotten in touch with your team, uh, you know, uh, taken different angles of that golf swing, uh, all the different drills that you're doing, and send it across so that you receive certain feedback back. When I say team, I mean your physiotherapist, I mean your psychologist, your coach, your nutritionist. So it's a combination of this, and athletes today would go up only because they have a support system like this. So the effort that we are putting in during this lockdown, we're maintaining our routine, we're trying to build our mental structure, make it stronger. The final goal to achieve is, like, let's say for golfers, would be consistency in your technique, would be repetition of that same swing, that we wish to achieve even while we are under pressure. So putting all these points together and kind of getting them all together would make mental training a lot more easier process for you. Now hello, I'd like to finish my talk right now. I'd like to take up some questions, but all I'm going to say is that I do know that this is like a difficult time. We're not getting to go out and play. It's frustrating as well. It's making us restless, mood swings. But yes, these are challenging times. We push ourselves. We do all these exercises and drills at home. I'm sure when you're back on the golf course, they will pay off. Hello, hi Sia.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, ma'am. Okay, so we move on to the questions right now.
Hmm.
Can you suggest few motivation techniques during this period of lockdown?
Yeah. Okay. So one of I'm guessing a lot of you are also junior athletes, golfers. One practice to kind of have inculcated in your life, in your sporting life, is to maintain a diary. uh, a diary practice is great because especially in this time, like let's say if you've already noted down your experiences while playing a tournament or after you've played your tournament. What it does is, right now you can sit back and you can try and uh, kind of read on those positive moments that you've had. You can use a lot of visual imagery that can be attached to it. Other than that, another positive thing that really works for my students here is, we do a lot of postcards and we do a lot of stickies. I encourage them to kind of put it where they would see things first. So while they're brushing first thing in the morning, you have it on your mirror there. They have, as childish as it sounds, We used to have posters and things like this when we were younger. Now what how I've converted that as a motivational technique for my students is to ask them to take motivational quotes out of their favorite players. They have it on their cupboards, when they open to wear their clothes, so they're already entering, you're already kind of reading this day in day out, you're changing things. Your mind is getting, how would I put this, your mind is getting more trained, and you're getting more motivated out of someone else who you idealize or who's out there. So quotes, stickies on the wall saying I can do this is what I need to do, things like that are very, very helpful.
All right. We have one question from YouTube.
Right.
When you don't have anything to work on the golf swing, what should
Mm.
you think over the ball?
When you don't, sorry, can you just repeat that?
Yeah. When you don't have anything to work on the golf swing, what should you think over the ball or anything else?
Okay, so I'm guessing, I'm assuming this is coming from a context of, right now in the lockdown period, you
Yeah.
don't, yeah, yeah, you can't, you're not there at the golf course. It's not there. Um, I would suggest, the few techniques that I've spoken about in my talk, pertaining to kind of depth perception. You could make arrows on the floor. You could work on your body rotation with those arrows. So there are exercises like this that you can do, which will help you when you get back on the golf course. It is not always about standing on the golf ball and making swings that would, you know, because that what it's going to do is only technically it's going to make you better. But how do you sync that technique in with your mental training is through your muscles. So you have to work on activating your mind as well.
All right. The next question. As parents, what do you suggest? How can we support our child?
Sorry, can you, sorry, I think my internet is a little, yes,
All
stressful.
right. I'll just repeat the question. As parents, what do you suggest? How can we support our children?
Okay, so I'm going to answer this question from my experience. I've worked with a lot of children and parents, and I've noticed and observed this a lot, that when they're in the when they're say about 9, 10 years old, okay, parents are investing a lot of money. They're investing a lot of time when it comes to travel. Now, what happens is when these kids reach the age of 15, when it's their peak time, of course, everybody is going to have their different peak times, but you know, how at 15 the competition is also growing. These parents kind of take a step back, because it always comes down to, oh, it's your 10th board, sit down to study. you know by then they're also financially overwhelmed by the expenses that come from the sport. So right now, as parents, what you can do best for your child right now is sit down, talk to the child. Where is the sport going? If the child is too young and the child doesn't know where the sport is going, see how passionate they are about it. Don't just have them sticking to one sport out of pressure of just being in one sport. Financial planning, very important part. This lockdown period, in fact, works really good for parents to see how in the future they can plan it better for their child, when it comes to concerning of their concerns for their sporting life. Yeah, so I think communication and kind of sitting down and figuring out a lot of other variables that are around golf would be more helpful than the parent sitting down and saying that, oh no, but you know uh, why you're not getting up at 6 in the morning and practicing jab golf ka time hota hai. Rather than that, and rather than getting on with the coaches saying that, oh, this is what I want, this is how I want the shot to go for my child, or this is what, rather than all of this, sit down, understand what your child really needs. Is this fun for your child? Is this a hobby, which is perfectly fine if it is? Is it just a summer sort of a experience for the child? So sit down, understand this, plan better, time management. These are the things that I think parents can really, really support their children in right now. Yeah.
All right. So you've answered the first question, that was when you don't have anything to work on the golf swing, what should you think over the ball? This question was actually regarding the golf course. So can you
Oh, on course
please go on?
management.
Yeah, like on the golf course.
Yeah, yeah, I get. Okay.
So
Yeah. Sorry, sorry if I didn't get that right though. Yeah, when it comes to golf course management, right now is the best time for visual imagery to come into play for that. you know i I strongly suggest players who've had an experience on the golf course, be it a good round or a bad round. Regardless of that, pick out your favorite golf course. Okay. Picture it in your mind from the first hole. Visualizing your golf swing, uh, uh, visualizing your golf swing, visualizing your ball flight. These are this is a very basic type of visualization. We call it process visualization. But a more detailed version of this would be when you involve your senses. uh, let's say you're on Tolly, the Calcutta golf course, Tolly, last hole. It's a par 3 if I remember correctly. Last when I played there. um, Visualize how, where you want the ball to drop. uh, I can you still smell the trees there? Can you picturize the the cafeteria there in front? So visualizing just the process, which is seeing a ball flight, seeing your swing, that is one form of doing it. Going more detailed into it, um, in form of visualization, yes, that's another form of doing it, and which is something I highly recommend over time, over a lot of practice. Yes, that does come in. So to answer
all
your
right.
question, saying right now what you can do is, this is a brilliant technique to get going with.
All right, then moving on to the next question. Uh, how can we make our minds strong and overcome failure?
And overcome failure.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's a tough one. um Okay, failure does come in a lot of forms. It's what you truly are seeing as failure. Um, there are no, uh, when I uh, talk to a lot of our students here, normally they think of failure as, let's say you're playing a shot in which it that shot really depends on um, how you are going to, what are the consequences of it. Let's say you're playing a match play, your team depends on it. You're either going to go to a playoff, or uh, you're you make the shot and everything is merry. So So when I think of all these things, I always think of, telling my students to do a lot of self talk. Now, self talk doesn't always mean, you will automatically have negative thoughts when you're um, exercising on how to better with self talk. I'll give you an example with this. Let me give that. Let's say there's a soccer player, and he's standing on the ball, and it just goes over the nets, and doesn't hit the goal post also. Now, you know what? He can come back and he can be like, "Oh my God, I can't believe this. This is like such a dumb move I've made, and what a horrible shot this was." There is another way of self-talking where you go like, "Oh, I can't believe this happened, but it does give me scope of improving this." Now, when you're thinking about the way the second thought came into place, what it does is it keeps your confidence still a little higher. It keeps your energy levels higher. So you're more productive now in terms of how do I better this? So whenever there is failure, there is always going to be that thought of what is it that I missed? How can I improve it? Self talk can get you going with a lot of that, you know. I do also refer I mean, encourage students and athletes to also consult with a lot of stats. You maintaining a diary, when I say that, it's also about thoughts, but maintaining a diary is also about stats. Because what happens is when you fail at something, it's a thought, it's oh, I did this wrong, I did this wrong, this happened. What is the proof of this? How do you know that, you could easily remember just the last chip that you made was a bad chip, but you whole game on it. So maybe throughout the round, you've had four good chips, and that was the last bad chip you had. So when you maintain a diary, there are stats involved in it. You see your averaging. Where are you standing? When you're playing your rounds of golf, what are your strengths? Are you two putting from 20 feet, or are you making single putts of 8 feet? Like, where are your strengths? Where are your weaknesses? So you see that. Are you chipping better from behind the bunker than you're chipping from around the green? These stats play a big important role in telling you that, hey, what I was thinking was just, maybe I was not thinking correctly. Maybe I need to reanalyze how I'm looking at this. And that's how I think you'd overcome failure.
All right.
I'm
Moving
getting
on.
these questions. Hi, Sia.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm getting these questions here.
yeah. So I'm just reading them out for you one by one.
Um,
Um,
should
how how can we get a perfect mindset before any competition or a tournament?
mm, well, I I do get this asked a lot. Right before I'm about to go into a tournament, people do say this a lot. How can I make my mind positive? It is not that moment. Um, a lot of psychologists right now would maybe not agree with what I'm saying. For me, it is a process. It works, it comes from thinking about being positive every time you enter a tournament, comes from months of training your mind. Of course, there are different techniques of training the mind. I'm not, you know, so I think it's a process basically. It's not gonna happen just on the day you're going, right before a tournament, to train your mind. Uh, Months of relaxation techniques, months of visualization, self talk, motivation, exercises related to what technical part of your game is maybe not aligned with where you want it to be. So things like this. Um, so yeah, it does take months of this to work, not just right before a tournament.
All
Uh,
right. The next question: can you explain muscle memory in golf and how to repeat the same again and again?
Great question. Okay. So muscle memory. What I mean by muscle memory, I'll give you a small example. Um, uh, let's talk about arrow jumps. We have place cards made out of arrow with arrow signs on them, and we point them in different direction. Now, I'm this example is of a child who was 9 years old. Okay, he was so good at jumping every single jump, and it's I kept it uh, at a distance, and it was quite a long drill that we were doing. This kid was so good at jumping exactly where the arrow was pointing and rotating. The body was coming so naturally. Now there was another kid who was 15 years old. This was very difficult for him to do, you know, and it's a very basic, it's a very simple drill. I understood why it's difficult for the kid to do, because the muscle memory for this 16-year-old 15-year-old was not aligned. So when I say muscle memory, it's basically the movements, the way your muscle moves, how your memory stores these movements. Now, like I said, for a beginner would take about 8 to 10 weeks. For let's say a professional golfer, getting this muscle memory up and running uh, takes a small amount of period. But I saw this with this example that I've just given with the 15-year-old. uh, we worked on the muscle memory. We worked longer to explain to him what, how your muscle should move when it's turning. It was a basic, simple turn. But it took a longer period of time, but it helped his golf swing because it in turn helped with his rotation. He wasn't moving laterally as how, which is a big thing with beginners normally in golf. So yes, so when I talk about muscle memory, this is how I this is what I mean by saying this is how it affects the game.
All right. The next question: adolescence has significant biological changes in a child. What special precautions should parents take while handling a player at this stage?
Okay, so okay, I would like, is this only, I'm guessing this is only pertaining to exercise and not to mental training right now, and I'm going to answer it. Okay, so when you hit adolescence, of course, there are a lot of changes. And communication is a big part, but also expectations that come out of it are that come out of the parent and that are projected onto the kids, or the kid, the athlete himself can have their own expectations. um, it bottles down to goal settings. It bottles down to communicating and having uh, what what type of goal are you looking at when you're thinking of the sport particularly. Now, there are certain mental goals that are there. Is it that you want to learn a new skill? Is it that what your coach is teaching you technically you cannot cannot get that going in your swing, because you just don't like that move. You're just being, you in your mind you have a stubborn mindset, because a lot of adolescents do go through that phase. So what kind of goal do you want to set? It's your parent and your coach, they need to sit down with the child. Is it a mental goal? Do you want to learn how to handle pressure situations, or do you want a tough mind under pressure, or is it a performance oriented goal? Is it about a specific shot that you want to develop? Do you want more consistency with, like, let's say, putting? Do you want to upgrade your equipment? Uh, it is that, or there are outcome goals also. Now outcome goals for me are, I always talk about them at the last, because they're the goals that you see the future in. you know I would normally go for more process oriented or mental or performance goals, then going for, okay, in 5 years I see myself playing amateur golf, and not playing junior golf. These goals put a lot more pressure on an adolescent player, you know. So yes, so when we talk about adolescent players, I always feel that talking about goal settings is very important with them.
All right, moving on to the next question. How important do you think is practicing after a round of golf while the tournament is on?
Can you just repeat that, please?
Yeah. How important do you think is practicing after a round of golf while the tournament is on?
Okay, this is a question I get asked a lot. Um, uh, Now, what happens is our body is also adapting to the way we are working it every single day. What I mean when I say this is, when we are when we are playing a tournament, it's going through a lot of stress, it's going through a lot of anxiety, a lot of emotions, thoughts. uh, you know so what happens is, the minute you finish this tournament, let's say you finish a round, your day one, and you've not played well at all. Okay, it doesn't mean that right after you finish your round, and I see this with a lot of junior uh, players, it does not mean that you rush to the practice range and try and correct that. Your mind might be telling you, oh my god, I'm so hungry. So when that is happening, you going on the range just because you've had a bad round is not in sync with what you're mentally thinking. So yes, I do not think that after a round of golf, going and hitting golf balls or practicing is of grave importance, until and unless it suits you. It is what you need at that time. Um, if your need is hunger, or if your need is thirst, or if your need is sleep, you might as well go and do that, and then come back and try and warm up and play a little and understand what went wrong. There are when I was playing the women's tour, there were a lot of players who could do this. They would just have a good round, have a bad round, doesn't matter. They would just go back and they would be like, I need to sleep, I want to do this. One of my very good friends used to do this, and she was an ace golfer. um, she would go off to sleep, and then she would come back in the evening and be there and try and understand what went wrong, or even if she played well, uh, be there and practice and be like, yeah, I'm ready for the next day. So I do not think that, just going back is a solution, immediate solution, or it works. So yeah. Mm,
All right. Moving on to the next question. As a mentor or a parent, how can I build a rapport with an adolescent player to ensure an open communication about the emotions that are felt by him while going through the roller coaster of ups and downs in the sport?
okay, so as so an adolescent, how can I build a rapport and
Yeah.
ensure open communication?
Yeah.
Okay. See what happens when we are playing a particular sport, when we're playing any sport, sorry, um, we play a good shot or a bad shot, we have a certain thought about it. Now, we attach emotion to that thought, you know. Oh, maybe it's a great round that someone's had, and they're super happy about it, and they're just going on talking about it, or they're getting overconfident about that feeling. It's coming, this emotion comes out of a thought that has happened due to an action. Okay. Now, to understand that during adolescent period, uh, children go through ups and downs. To ensure an open communication doesn't mean you sit down with the child and every single day is like, yeah, what happened? Why are you feeling this way? Try and be a little more specific as to why, as to how did it make you feel, rather than um, you know a lot of, I'm not blaming parents here, but it's coming out of experience in the past of working with them. um, a lot of parents would say, oh yeah, but ye to shot was so good, and this, my child can do this, um, play this bunker shot in his sleep, and he's practiced so much on this, and yeah. Now, you've spoken so much about this, but you've not asked the child what he or she truly feels about that bunker shot. Maybe the child truly, and this is a actual case that happened, maybe the child truly doesn't want to go inside the bunker and play that shot because um, the sand kind of went in his eye, and then his peers were making fun of him. He just wants to go in, play it, come back as soon as possible, finish that shot. So for you, you are seeing it as a third person, and it's come out well, you've enjoyed that shot, it's all good. But maybe for that child, the feelings and the emotions attached behind that shot are completely different to yours. So when we talk about open communication, it involves a lot of whys. How are you feeling this way? Why are you feeling this way? How did it make you feel? A lot of times we miss this point. Instead, we end up saying, oh, that must have made you feel good. Oh, I can understand, you must be feeling bad. Maybe the child's body has been overworked, and maybe he's like really tired, and so he shot a bad round. But when they finish that round, as a parent or a sibling or a friend, even if you go up and if you tell the child that, oh, I understand, oh, you must be like, feeling really bad that you played such a bad round. Maybe the child is like, I'm so glad I just finished, I just did this. So asking them and keeping an open channel about whys and hows, that's important. So I hope I've answered satisfactorily
Yeah.
this question.
All right. So the next question, how do I keep my mind on the process and not on the outcome on Q schools and qualifying events when results really matters?
Sure thing. Sorry, can you just give me 1 second, please?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Can you repeat that, please?
Yeah, all right. Uh, so,
Hmm.
how do I keep my mind on the process and not on the outcome on Q schools and qualifying events when results really matters?
Okay, result does matter. Yes, we do focus. We also have to focus a lot on the result, um, and it is how you can focus on Q schools results for specifically is a by telling yourself that have you done enough. What is the backing, what is the backing behind it? Has there been enough training? Has there been enough physical, mental training? um, when you've not received your desired result, set yourself a goal which is which is something that is going to be um, that's approachable. It is not a goal which is far beyond your approach. When you do that, then you tell yourself, okay, now to attain this goal, what are the divided into different sections, segments. Mentally, what do I need to achieve this goal? Check box, three check boxes there. What have I got? Technically, what is missing? If something is missing technically, what form of exercise, and consult your coach on this, or your therapist on this, your what form of exercise would also help me get fitter better so that I can perform that technique. So when Q school is a lot of pressure, and when you do not qualify for these things, um, you have to step back and assess. And this is the best time to actually do this. Assess and kind of get yourself to say that these are the goals that I want to set. This is how I want to proceed. Um, and I also say that, kind of focusing on variables that are in your control is always better than focusing on the result. When I say focusing on things that are in your control, uh, you know, they are like, you can visualize what kind of ball trajectory you want. That's in your control. Focusing on your golf swing only, you know, or which is internal focusing, is a lot more harder. It's not that it's impossible. It's a lot more harder. So when you're not reaching the goals that you want to reach, yes, you try and first work on things that are easier. And as you excel in working on these things that are easier, on these techniques that are easier, you then go into more detail on the same techniques, and you master those. So yes, different kind of focus is required for when you're not reaching your desired goals. Yeah.
All right, ma'am. So we don't have any more questions yet. So
Okay.
we can end the session right here. All right.
Thank you so much, and I hope everyone's enjoyed the talk. And if there are more questions, you can hit me up directly anytime.
All right, sure, ma'am. Thank you for doing the sessions with us, and thank you all for attending the session.